In May 2020, the world was shocked by another instance of apparent police brutality, the murder of George Floyd. On this occasion, however, the outpouring of responses across social media showed that something had significantly shifted in terms of attitudes. The protests, the stories, the demands for change that we were seeing weren't just aimed at the police or authorities. Instead, they asked everyone, individuals, businesses, industries and institutions, to take a long, hard look at themselves and acknowledge the centuries-old inequalities, discrimination, lack of representation and issues that ethnic minorities faced, not just in America, but across the world. The UK quickly became one of the many countries under great scrutiny, and particularly its financial services industry. But why the focus on finance? Today I'm joined by Michael Barrington Hibbert. Michael, in the context of the last 2 years and this sort of sea change that we've been getting, why has there been so much of a spotlight on the UK financial services in particular?
That's a great question, and it's debatable whether there has been a sea change. But what we're focused on with financial services, it talks about context. So if we look at the UK population, it consists of 14% of ethnic minorities. And if you look at London as a microcosm, that rate increases to 40%. Take one aspect of our industry, fund management. 10% of that group consists of Asian, whereas only 1% consist of black professionals. And if we drive down further, and again, data is so important because that drives context and that drives action. But if we look at fund management and we look at portfolio manager roles, out of thousands and thousands of portfolio managers in the United Kingdom, we were only able to find 14 black professionals running money across the United Kingdom. Not percent, 14 black professionals. And that number, Roger, is disgraceful. If we look at a recent 2021 survey, 2 out of 3 ethnic minority employees within financial services have felt discriminated against. 2 out of 3, Roger. Half of that number feel that their career progression has been limited by being an ethnic minority in financial services. So again, context is really important here.
And when you look at, there's this concept around profitability, there's a concept around commerciality, etc. But often people will say, okay, what we want to see is progress. And the way we see progress is through data, through being able to actually say, look, we have seen this change. Are we able to capture that? Are we able to say, okay, here we are 2 years on, and maybe in another 3 years' time, that there is more diversity because we can see it in the numbers, who's actually getting that data and who's actually providing it?
So John Parker's review, which was commissioned a number of years ago, and the focus was to increase diversity within board level positions by 2023. As of earlier this year, 89 out of the 100 FTSE 100 companies have delivered on this pledge. So there has been progress from that standpoint. But we need greater clarity. We need a greater emphasis around ethnicity pay gap reports. A number of organisations are still working on this, but a small number have actually publicised those stats, Roger. And that's what we need to do. We need greater accountability from a data standpoint and be able to hold organisations accountable for changing the dial.
And that's, interesting there, you sort of talked about a small number of these big institutions. Again, it goes back to something you were talking about, the commerciality, and yet, is there a reason why only a small number are actually providing the data that goes along to sort of show that there is this progress being made?
I think this drives around culture, okay? And I was sitting on a panel yesterday discussing organisations and leaders being in the position where they can make mistakes. If you're the CEO of a FTSE 100 company or a NASDAQ listed company, you know one wrong step will shave off millions, hundreds of millions, even billions of your share price. So what we're seeing is a culture where leaders are not able to make mistakes. So as a consequence, if your data isn't fantastic, What are the consequences of that, Roger? What are the consequences of actually saying, actually, we're in a bad spot here? What's that going to do to the shareholders? The reason why the US or some US firms have a competitive advantage, and we have to look at the intersectionalities of the states. The US has a 40% population which are ethnic minority, okay? And it's going to quickly become the majority. You have an African American middle class. So therefore, there is a pipeline of talent. Okay, there's a pipeline of talent. There are role models. There are CEOs. Look, the US still have a long way to go, but contextually, if you then look at the UK and you look at immigration and the fact that Africans and those from the Caribbean only have been in the UK for 40, 50 years, and from a societal standpoint, it's very difficult to climb up that ladder. So what we're finding is that a number of organisations are starting from the ground up. So I've mentioned to you previously off camera that I'm the co-founder of 10,000 Black Interns. We created a program which enabled diverse Black talent who don't necessarily all go to Russell Group universities could get paid internships in order to increase that pipeline. But it's a multifaceted approach that organisation needs to take. So it's around intake, it's around lateral, it's around retention.
So lots of change going on, some progression being made, but where does that actually leave us now?
I'm receiving so much feedback around diversity fatigue. And I think it's really important to stress this, Roger, is that over the last 2 years, we've seen some really vocal allies. The founders of Real Vision and many others have really wanted to support this initiative going forward. This isn't about taking jobs from one group and giving it to the other. It's about leveling the playing field. So what we're really emphasizing is being able to drive equality and opportunities for all.